There you go.
You know, like,
Keep calling me
what's
for an
the
extension,
hell?
I'll sign it.
Yeah.
How are you?
It's not like you're going
Yeah,
anywhere. So.
she's totally went
Said they're
Tanya
gonna
Harding
bid
on him.
on against me. He said, no,
I'm like, I'm glad you think I'm such a violent person.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're on camera.
15 years. We're live. We're live. Yes. Excuse me.
Sometimes it takes that long. I didn't realize.
I'm patient.
I'd like to bring this meeting to the Town Council for May 3rd, 2016 to order. Please join me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Twyla.
Yes, Counselor Albert,
Here.
Counselor Kobe,
Here.
Counselor Ward,
Here.
Counselor McTevier,
Here.
Counselor Bickford,
Here.
Counselor Kraus,
Here.
and Counselor Brunel.
Here.
Next item, Twyla.
The, under Good News and Recognition, Order 2016-101, a resolution for the 2016 Spirit of America Tribute.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this resolution.
Second?
All in favor?
Resolution passed, and it reads as follows. The 2015 Lisbon, Maine Spirit of America Foundation Tribute honors Natalie Thompson for commendable service and school community service. Be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Lisbon as follows. Whereas Natalie, who is a senior at Lisbon High School, began volunteering in the 5th grade because she didn't want to go outside after lunch. Her passion was to stay in so she could help others. Whereas Natalie has been involved with the following activities during her 4 years of Lisbon High School: AP classes, art club, book club, chess club, civil rights, class officer, community service, drama, SADD, Scrabble club, student government, yearbook, baseball, track, bowling, Big Brother, Big Sister, young adult volunteer, and Moxie Festival. And whereas she also attends school committee meetings, council meetings, as well as ribbon cutting ceremonies for new businesses. And whereas Natalie has accumulated over 900 hours of school and community service. And whereas Natalie will begin her freshman year at the University of Farmington in the fall of 2016, where she will study education as well as aspires to be elected to serve as a school committee member with the goal of one day becoming a principal. And now therefore be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Lisbon that Natalie Thompson is hereby recognized for her admirable achievements and honors that she has instilled upon this community with the 2016 Lisbon Spirit of America Foundation Tribute. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be framed and presented to Natalie Thompson for appropriate display. Natalie, please come forward. Want to stay right there for a picture? There we go.
Good idea, yeah, there you go.
Busy girl.
You're not going to say a few words? Come on.
Yeah, speech.
I think the correct answer was yes, you are.
Thank you. I kind of like to know where you got this information about me not wanting to go outside, because it's true. I just didn't know where you got it.
We have our ways.
I will thank Mr. Gannon. Well, thank you.
Good find.
In the next item, you have something you'd like to present?
Yes. Let me just.
Yep.
Barilla? In honor of your 31 years of past service, we are dedicating this town
Well, it's been a little over a year since I stood here. It's been an awesome year. Most of it. There's been some sad times. This was all top secret. I didn't know I was coming here tonight. I thought I was going up for supper. And I really want to thank you. This is wonderful. I see the pictures that I took of the flowers. I really appreciate your thoughtfulness, and I don't know what else to say. Thank you.
Thank you for all.
Next time, Paula.
Do you have any other good news and recognition? That would be public hearings. The Chapter 70 zoning ordinance, property maintenance section, 614 and 41.
Don?
I assume that was an invitation.
Yes.
I come here representing the planning board tonight to present the property maintenance section of the zoning ordinance. And the property maintenance ordinance, or a portion of the zoning ordinance, is something that the planning board has been playing with between us and the town for, I think, the last 3 years. Although these acts behind me are hard to follow, I think we should pay attention to this zoning ordinance, and I hope that there are some good comments about it tonight. What it is an attempt to keep Lisbon an attractive, well-kept, safe community. Emphasis on safe. What it is not here for is general appearance or even grass mowing. That's not what this is about. There are many ordinances that this comes from that are state ordinance or state statutes. But it is generally, as most of you know, it is easier and better if a town can adopt its local ordinance based on state statute, so the intent of the town is well known. That's not absolutely required in all cases, but that's what the purpose of this is. So there's a large part of this that's based solely on state statute. There are a couple of provisions in it that go out and beyond that, and we on the planning board went to a training session held in Auburn, or in Lewiston, and it talked about dangerous buildings. Dangerous buildings is a major focus in the state, as well as is abandoned property and abandoned mobile homes. And so that's what this addresses. I wanted to specifically say, other than the fact that it speaks to state statute, that there is required maintenance in here. And one of them is that all grounds or parts thereof shall be maintained to prevent unsafe and sanitary or nuisance conditions. The same goes for property. That's what this is about. The town has a right, if it determines that a building is structurally unsafe, after hearing, in order it is able to take action as a dangerous building. It can order to have something demolished if it needs to. That is in state statute. That is backed up in this ordinance. There's a lot of due diligence that has to be done in the process. Also addressed is any building or structure that is partially destroyed by fire or totally destroyed. There are some provisions that we have locally that require someone to take action other than immediate action to make this site secure. There are some actions in here that are required, for instance, a permit and a demolition schedule or time frame, so that something doesn't remain totally abandoned and totally unkept and unsafe for a long period of time. One of the things that's added in here that isn't in any demolition that we've had in the past is a section that says demolition must be completed such that property is graded to existing land contours where structures formerly stood. The footprints of all buildings and structures must no longer be visible. That's a change. We have not had that in the past. Once this is enacted, I believe it's however many days, 21 days after, if it is enacted, then these things become enforceable for new things that occur after that 21-day period. If reconstruction is not planned, there's a permit required, and if reconstruction is planned, there's a time frame, and if that time frame goes by and there is no reconstruction, then it must be totally demolished, and it says so in the statute. So that's essentially what it's about. If there's any comments that you have or questions, I think most of you have probably read it. Thank you.
I've got something to say to the public. I've been sitting in on these meetings now for at least two years, and when they first proposed it, it really ruffled the hair on my head, because I'm not one for property maintenance. But
Excuse me.
they did a real good job. They soothed my worries, and last year it was going to come to us, and there was a little problem with a yard sale thing in it, and we didn't even want to hear it. So they broke the yard sale out, and that's going to come before us at a separate thing. And I really think this property maintenance bill is really good, especially after living for 5 or 6 years next to my old homestead, and they wouldn't even let you mow the lawn because they didn't want anybody on the property. And I'm watching the old homestead just fall in, and this would have stopped that. And I really think this is a good ordinance. Okay, that's all I got.
I got something, if that's okay.
Yep.
I think it does a good job. I want to say to the public that I did see the email. I know we went to all of council this week. We saw an email from a concerned citizen. And while I certainly appreciate everything that was in that email regarding the concerns, I think this protects property values and protects the overall the appeal of our neighborhoods. I think we can all take a drive up in Main Street in Lisbon and see how some of the things that Don mentioned are directly, we can see how those came about and why we probably put some of those provisions in place. Because any sort of future demolitions, especially on the 196 corridor, want to make sure that what's left behind is a presentable footprint, something that would be appealed to another business owner to come along and say, I want to develop my business there, versus maybe something that's a little less than desirable and doesn't look all that great. I think we have a couple of examples of those that come to mind right off the top of my head that we don't want to continue to see stuff like that popping up. So I agree with Roger. I think it's well thought out, certainly well planned. It's not a fly-by-night piece here. It's been well thought out, so that's my take.
Back in October, they had a breakfast here, hosted by Tracy, and it quickly got out of hand. Brought in code enforcement with Dennis Douglas to field the concerns by the small businesses at the time. This is the number one thing they're looking for locally, to address those concerns. So to see that point in time and to be able to deliver this for something that they're asking for, to be able to character of the town, to be able to address what is done, but moving forward, it's a win-win.
Yep. Anybody else? Next item.
Okay, so we'll close the public hearing, and we'll move to audience participation and response for agenda items.
Anybody? Next item, Twyla.
Is a consent agenda. Anyone wishing to remove the item may do so now. Order 2016-102 to approve the minutes of April 19th, 2016.
Make a motion to accept. I'll second.
All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item.
Under council orders, resolutions, and ordinances, Order 2016-103, the zoning ordinance, property maintenance, Section 614 and 41. This is a second reading, and a roll call vote is required.
Need a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope. I think we already
Paul?
have it.
Counselor Albert?
Yay.
Counselor Colby?
Yes.
Counselor Crafts?
Yes.
Counselor Maytevier?
Yes.
Counselor Brunel?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
And Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed.
Good job, Don. Next item, Paula.
Order 2016-104, the town insurance bid award.
Okay, on page 13 of your packet has the summary of the bid award. The bids were opened on April 21st at 2 p.m. We received two bids, one from Maine Municipal Association and the other one from Shampoo Rogers Insurance, who we currently have our insurance through. The recommendation tonight is to keep the insurance with the Shampoo Rogers Insurance. And if you refer to page 25 and 26 of your packet, on page 25, you'll see some options below. The recommendation tonight is to adopt the options, which increases the limit of the insurance from 1 million to 3 million. Or 1 million, 3 million, on the public officials, the law enforcement, and the employee practices, employee liability. And on page 26, after we received the bids, the Maine Municipal gave us two different bids. They gave us a bid as I requested, plus they gave us a bid for the deductibles being increased on certain policies. So what I did was I went back to the Shampoo Insurance and asked them to give me a quote increasing the deductibles as well. So she did that, and we talked about it, and we agreed to increase the deductible for the commercial buildings, the law enforcement liability, and the public officials liability. And by doing that, it reduced the premium down to $89,536. So that's with the higher deductibles and the higher limits. So that's our recommendation tonight, is to award the bid to the Shampoo Agency for bid option 2 plus liability and festivals, fairs, and other events for at least a 5-year term in the amount of $90,036. The $500 from the liability for festival, fairs, and other events will be coming out of the economic development budget, which will be offset by TIF funds. This is a reduction from what I've proposed in my budget that you have seen so far, so when you see a revised budget, the insurance figures will be reduced.
I need a motion on this budget that Diane has so graciously explained to us.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Sure. Either one. Keep it moving, either one.
What?
Second.
Oh.
All in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Next item, Twyla.
Order 2016-105, tax acquired property sale.
Okay, this piece of tax acquired property is located on 10 Gendron Drive, and it's been out for bid, or been advertised twice now. And the property, the taxes go back to 2003 on this property. What's owed on it, we would never get because the trailer is not even worth close to that. The person that was the previous owner just recently passed away, and his daughter has offered to pay $1,000 and to get it quitclaimed to her, and I think that's a good deal for the town at this point, because I don't think we'd ever get $1,000 from anybody else. And for the liability, I think it's worth it to accept the $1,000 and then write off the remaining bad debt. So the recommendation is to sell the trailer located at 10 Gendron Drive to Brittany Bollier in the amount of $1,000, as is without warranties, on the following, and authorize the town manager, treasurer to issue a quitclaim deed when the payment has been received, and write off the remaining balance due of $4,738.80. And the reason that remaining balance is so high, as I said, this goes all the way back to 2003.
And you said
With
it's gone out to
interest.
bid twice.
Yes, it has. First, it had a minimum on it. The second, I didn't put a minimum, and I didn't get any bids at all. This is the last of those 55 tax-acquired properties, I'll have you know.
That's great. That's great news, then.
Yeah.
I need a
I
motion.
make that motion, just as read.
I'll second. Second.
Any discussion?
Where's Gendron Drive in Lisbon? That's what I couldn't find.
It's out almost to inclusion.
Yeah.
It's right behind the old Camelot, or
Yeah.
what is the old Black
Yeah.
Bull?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
It's right off from Spring Street.
thank you.
It's like
Thank you.
probably 6 on each side, probably a dozen or 15 in there.
Okay, so it's that lot. I got you. Thank you.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, Twyla.
Order 2016-106, tax acquired property bid.
Okay, this one is a newly tax acquired piece of property, and it's the only one that we have left out of all the ones we tax acquired this year. We were able to get full payment from the prior owners and quitclaim them back. This one here, the people have walked away from, and I believe they've cleaned it out, and it's a trailer located at 29 Sabattis Creek Drive. The total owed is $1,165.71. The recommendation at this point is to authorize me to advertise the property without a minimum bid, and to accept payment in full from the prior owner if they so should choose before we go through this process, until the council takes action to dispose of the property and issue a quitclaim deed. So, in other words, what you're going to allow me to do is to advertise it, but between the time we advertise it and if I get any bids and it comes back to you, if the prior owner should decide they want to come forward and pay everything in full, I still have the ability to quitclaim it back to them.
There's another trailer.
Yep, and it's the only piece we own now.
I say do it.
I need a motion.
I'll make-
the motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, Twyla.
Order 2016-107, cell phone discussion.
Yes, I'll let you go. Since you,
The reason it's on the agenda tonight, exactly. Coming through the budget process, hearing
Which
all
is
the
that on,
different.
Alan?
It's
29
looks like
it starts.
27, 29.
Thank you.
What I was just basically looking for here tonight, guys, is just an open discussion amongst us, is seeing the list of employees that actually have cell phones, and if we want to do anything budget-related outside the budget, because it's kind of hits everybody. Plus, there's IRS regulations that we're not in conform with in that regard, that it is a taxable benefit to employees for giving them a cell phone that we're not currently addressing. And legal also looked into the FOA. I was under the impression that's good to have at least the information. Basically, if we get a freedom of access request, we're obligated to provide that information as well too. So, looking at the list associated with that, if we wanted to move towards a stipend, much like Diane and Ed, are the only two currently?
Yeah.
Just the two?
I just want to say that on page 27 is the legal opinion that came back.
Right.
And there is a section on taxation, and it applies to both whether you do a stipend or,
Right, it is a taxable benefit accordingly. Right now, it is nothing that we're actually adding to the employee's wages for that piece of it. So that needs to at least be addressed, whether we stay with the existing format, we're paying for the person's phone, or moving towards the stipend. My background at Lewiston, we went through the process of converting everybody to a stipend, clearly because there is a personal piece of it as well too in that regard, and the fact that when you're paying for this, if it's found associated with that, then there's that percentage that the employee has an obligation for. So they divested themselves of that and moved everybody towards a stipend. So I bring it here. I would pose the question if comfortable with the current approach in that regard. What they're intending to do is people leave, phasing them out and moving them to a stipend, or we can direct it as something part of the budget and have that moving forward to give Diane and Ed a little more oversight coming from the council for directive. And I could go either way with it. I've seen both sides, but
On page 129 is going to be the new charges once we switch to the state contract, and they're quite a bit less than what we're paying currently.
that's that was an eye-opener for me, just in that regard.
Yeah.
Prior to this document, we were averaging somewhere between 30 and 40, 50, depending on where the person was in that part. So there is that being already addressed for the budget implications.
Okay.
Diane, how do you feel about this?
Well, I think that there may be some instances here where we should issue the cell phone. Obviously, the ones that are in the cruisers, they need to be town-issued ones.
Right.
It's like the ACO as well. I mean, he's covering other towns besides Lisbon, and
And likewise, you're drawing revenue from that. I'm assuming that's part of the contract
Exactly,
that covers
yeah.
that anyways.
so that's, his vehicle is his office primarily, so
Right.
that's his phone, is his, it's not like he's sitting at a desk and has a landline, so, and he takes the vehicle home, so I think that, and I think I'd want to have a discussion with the detectives too, because I'm not sure that they would want to use their personal phone for all the calls
Right.
that they're
We
going to
talked
get for
about-
everything
right.
that they're doing, so. I don't think it's a one situation that fits everybody.
What I haven't been able to, I didn't reach out because it's kind of an odd conversation to have, but I know in Lewiston, every Lewiston police officer has that stipend that's actually done. Do they conduct all their business and personal on that line? I couldn't tell you. Because just for that reason, I don't know if I'd want the nature of some of the people that they're going to be dealing with in their work environment on their personal phones, for sure.
I'm going to, since I see a couple of people here I want information from, I'm going to break from the norm. Chief, would you come to the podium, please?
You thought it was going to be.
I know you weren't expecting this, but what do you think
What's the question?
about cell phone stipends and the
We haven't
department?
had any discussion on this
I
at
know.
all.
Well, I'm asking it off your cuff.
There's a law enforcement concern, and I would have to do some more research on it. You've already touched on a couple of them, especially on the detectives.
Right.
Detectives' stipend isn't going to pay for enough to cover what their use of their phone is doing. So there needs to be more research done on this than what's been offered so far.
Okay. So could you do a little research on it so we could have a little more information before the budget ends?
You want the report in July?
Oh, right on. How about the 4th of July?
We'll look into
It's
it.
a valid question.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Harry, can you come up too? Right off the cuff, what is your partake on this?
I mean, I don't have a phone provided by the town. I get the town rate with Verizon on my personal phone,
Right.
but I don't have an issued phone.
When you check in, it's in the cruiser, right?
We have two issues with the cruisers. One is strictly data,
Yep.
because we have air cards for our laptops that nobody, I mean, it's data
static
only.
IP, right.
Right, so that's one line, and then I believe each car has its own cell phone that we use. If I'm on the road and I need to talk to somebody about a complaint or something that I'm dealing with, I don't want to use my personal phone to do it, because then they get my phone number. So I use the cruiser phone to do that.
All right,
So,
that's what I wanted to know.
I'd like to add one thing. What bothers me with the comment about the city of Lewiston is that every officer has a stipend. I'd be curious to know if that was a negotiated benefit.
Sure it was. Part of their contract.
It was.
Yes, it
You
was.
don't have that here.
Okay,
So you're gonna be,
back to the drawing board.
well, you're at the drawing board now,
Yeah.
but it's just something else you'll have to think about.
Yep.
So just letting you know.
Yep. Thank you, Chief.
So it sounds like it's gonna
I
work.
think-
I mean, it's fine. I mean, like I said, I go either way with the topic. And the fact that we're coming out and looking for direction.
I think it's a good, we're going down a good path. I think we ought to,
Move forward.
Move forward and look and get some more information and see what's what. I'm sure that we can do some tweaking on it. If we're gonna do it, we wanna do it right.
And, you know, we have Tracy here too, and she has a provided cell phone, and that's just for work only. She's got her own separate phone for business, for personal, so everything that she's doing is on the towns.
Yeah.
And, you know, the chief does make a good point, you know, a stipend may not cover it if they're on their own personal plan.
Nope.
So I mean, I don't know. It depends on what their home plan is and how much they're gonna use it for business.
I think echoing Roger's point, I think we're running down the right path. I just think we need to get some more research done to kind of maybe take a look at how other folks do it and how they deal with some of these challenges. And then bring some of that back and talk about, do we think that would work here for us?
Doesn't sound like it'll work for the police department. Sounds like you're gonna have to.
Public safety.
I
I
think
would say
it's-
public safety in general in that regard. And one of the things that my bias heartburn coming from Lewiston again is the fact is the PW folks actually get pulled out of that public safety inappropriately because they're responding to a water main break or any of the other responses that are out there during the plowing. They have the same responsibility. So there may be sensitivity for that in this entire issue.
Yeah.
I think we oughta,
Okay.
Yeah, we ought to
I
just
would
kinda-
recommend to table the discussion and move.
huh?
Yep.
Yes, go
Yep.
ahead.
Mary Morgan Alexander. If a phone is part of your job description and you are issued it by the town, it's a town phone for town use only. That's one category, and this falls to the police department, the fire chief, anyone else that needs a phone strictly for town use. No non-town use allowed at all. That's what it's for the benefit of the town directly. If you have people that do have cell phones and they might be willing to share the use of their cell for non-critical town use, then you can look at your stipends. But if it's a situation of it's part of your job description, it's like a priest. You have a rectory. The priest's job, part of it is living in that rectory where he can be reached. It's part of his job description, so it's not taxable. If it were a perk, it would be taxable. So there's your line. Is it a perk or is it a necessity for the benefit of the town directly?
Thank you, Marion. Okay, that was a good discussion.
Well said.
So let's just look into it and just we'll keep
Move
abreast of it. Okay, next item, Twyla.
Order 2016-108, Communications Center discussion.
Am I in the hot seat? I am.
You're not, see, no, this one.
Yeah, you are.
Well, after learning of Sabattis's contract with county, I think we need to revisit our issue as far as the communication center goes. I've heard several complaints from community members that it's not that we want to get rid of it, but we've lost revenue associated with those services, and now a lot of it's being placed on to the town of Lisbon folks. So I think we need to revisit and figure out, I'd rather be proactive than reactive.
I think we've got it pretty well. I mean, we did look into it and we can't put it on the June ballot anyways, but, we're gonna go to referendum on it, and that will decide if the people wanna keep it and spend the money, then they'll keep it. If they wanna get rid of it, then, you know, we can slowly phase it out, because for a fact, and I know if we tried to dump it right now, the sheriff's department couldn't take this town on. They have all they can do to take on Sabattis. So,
And more so, you're gonna have the same frustration that we had when we had the workshop on it, and the last time it came forward. You're gonna have a room full of constituents here from the public safety, and there's going to be
Right.
the same issues that you guys fielded last time.
I find
So
just
what-
as many people complaining about getting rid of it as there are that.
Well,
All right.
we're
let's
not-
go full disclosure here, and I'm sure we were all kind of disappointed that Sabattis chose the road they chose, but it is what it is, and we're in the place we're at. All the current contracts for dispatch only made up a very small amount of what the comm center budget is. I mean, so they offset, but at no point in time did losing Sabattis, it was a drop in a bucket. So when I look at that, and as many constituents I know you heard from, I heard the other side of that, which is just like we saw in the room full of folks here, saying, do I want my comm dispatched by somebody who doesn't live in his town
But-
or doesn't get it? I just hear me out, and I'll gladly hear you. So I think that we got to go to referendum, like Roger said. I think that solves the problem of whether or not, if the majority of the people in this town come out and vote and say they want the comm center to stay, we find a way. If they say we don't, then we put together an exit strategy, one that makes sense and it keeps people of our community safe. So, yeah,
No, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, it's not that I want to get rid of it
Sure, I know.
any more than you want to, you know, but when you look at it, what did we say? It was like $65,000 worth
Well,
of loss?
between the two,
Yeah.
approximately.
That's a lot of money for me to be able to swallow. And
me too.
I mean, to know that we're in budget season right now, I mean, I know it's not going to happen overnight, but we can't be naive either. We have to look at the situation and is it a want, is it a need? Weigh the options.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, and I think that that's why we travel down the road in a kind of a smart fashion.
I just don't want people to think that we're ignoring the issue.
Well,
No,
the discussion, the people
have-
now will know that it's gonna go, they're gonna be the one deciding it in November.
Right, well, it's a
Exactly it.
to Diane's point back before, though, it is a non-binding vote in November, because it'll be a new seated council that need to move forward with what the majority say at that election. So you pose the question, you get your clear direction, and it's the council that comes back in that next
We're
meeting.
gonna have to
that
discuss
right.
this, because I'm not much for non-binding.
No, no,
I've gone there, I've
I
gone
mean,
there.
I don't know if
Is
there's
that
a
the
way
way
to
it's gonna
bind it. I
work?
mean, that's a
How does it-
question,
right.
that'll be a question for Dan
No,
Stock.
no, I'm
but-
not suggesting. I'm saying the reality is there'll be 3 new councilors. They need to move forward associated with that in the next term, is what I'm saying.
Well, basically, the way I look at it, if they voted in,
We should make it happen.
Right.
it's gonna that's the people's happen.
That's what I agree with you.
And then if it voted out, then the 3 new councils can sit and say, okay, let's figure out a strategy, or all of you will figure out a strategy to move it out.
Right.
Because it's not gonna be an overnight situation. It's not gonna be bing and bang. You're gonna have to, it's gonna be a long, drawn-out situation.
Right.
I think you'll get a true census come November, because there's gonna be a huge voter turnout this November.
For sure.
As long as we make people aware of the pros and cons of it, there should be, I would think we want to have a public hearing before November to discuss this topic and let people know. I know a lot of people that would just soon pay higher taxes to keep the comp center here. And then there's others that don't want it, so. But I think you'll have a pretty good idea of what the people want after November.
Now, can we explain to the public why we're waiting till November and why we can't do it in June? Just so that way it's out there.
Yeah, we can't, because we need to, the ballots need to be ready for absentee voting, and we don't have time to do that. That's why it can't go on in June.
And June wouldn't get you a true census of what the people want anyway. We already know that.
Okay, so thank you, Casey, because it's out.
I just wanted it to be out there because I know my phone, as soon as that article came out, my phone was ringing.
Yeah, and,
Harry's sitting in the audience. Do you want him to speak?
no,
No?
you
Yes.
you can, if you want to.
Just a quick point. Well, one thing that I would like to have you monitor, and the townspeople can monitor, when Sabattis does this change, how is it gonna work out for him?
That's what I'm waiting for.
And that needs to be looked at from the time they do their switch to when that, the people vote. If they get input monthly or whatever, and find out how it's working out for them.
Well, that's gonna be, I think you know a lot of, 2 or 3 people on the Sabattis Police Department.
Yeah.
That you
Oh,
can
yeah.
probably keep us informed on.
I will.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. I think it was a good discussion. It needed to happen.
We're starting it in May, so
Yeah.
people who watch these understand. Tell your neighbors, if you have a concern, bring it up.
And if you're living under a rock, there's a lot of stuff on November's ballot. You really ought to get educated and show up for some of them.
Sure.
And we've got time, too, to figure out how we're going to word that question.
Right.
You know, you may want to put a time frame on it, too. Like if, to ask the taxpayers if they want to contract with another entity as of such and such a date.
It's a great idea.
Put a time frame on it, as of July 1st or whatever, so that they know.
To that point, I mean, LA 911 has reached out to me, so their county is not the only option. So we could.
They called me as well.
They would have loved to have all 3 partners be able to do it, because it made more sense with Sabattis and us and Durham all in one discussion. But that would have been right back to the same scenario that we had last year. That would have been the wrong idea. That rushing to make a decision.
I don't think that the folks that filled this room last year would be opposed to a metered plan that made sense. And I think that's why, like you said, if it didn't feel like it was going so quick, kind of moving so fast, then maybe it probably would have got some support. But I think because it seemed like it was moving so quick, I think the right approach is taking the time and to really offer up the education and say, there are a couple of options available to us. Here's what they've come back and said they can do for us. Here's the time frames in which they said they can do it, and here's how they're going to be able to go ahead and manage or address some of our concerns. Because each person that showed up in this room, I'm sure they had individual concerns, some of them common, some maybe completely we didn't even think of. But hearing all of those will give us a chance to put that together and say, here's what the people of this community are concerned about. What can you do to put their fears to rest? So
I think better research involved into it, and like you said, not rushed into it, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's just done. No more further discussion. I think that's where a lot of some of the heartache sits as well.
A lot of that research was done in a previous report. I mean, I know that Greg mentioned that during the last session as well, too. What we're actually bringing to it this time, go around, is the November discussion to see what the public wants, to be able to figure out, move the direction after that point.
Right, but in order to have the public's input, they need to be able to have the information. Not everybody got
Agreed.
that information.
Agreed.
All set?
I'm good.
Next item, Paula.
Under other business, the town manager's report.
I just want to report that we received a letter from the Department of Economic and Community Development, and I'm pleased to inform everybody that we've been invited into the next phase of the project for the CDBG Micro Enterprise Assistance Grant, which is that $150,000 facade grant. So we're going to, we've been invited into the project development phase of the application process, and we're going to move forward and do everything that we need to do. And I just want to say thank you to Tracy. She really worked hard on this grant, and the Route 196 committee. All of their input really helped, and I think they were instrumental in the town receiving these funds.
thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
That's all I have.
Next item, Paula.
Is the EMA director update?
Lisa, you're up.
See, you're sitting there.
She just snuck in.
Thank you. I promised to keep
right on
it
top.
brief. That's what, I was crossing things off on my notes. Since I saw you last, I've been doing more orientation and trainings online and over at the county EMA office. So that's moving along well. Just recently, we had a local EMA directors meeting for the county EMA directors. It was a quarterly staff meeting. The county director, Joanne Potvin, invited guests to speak on the topics of pet sheltering and pet preparedness. It was a part of the emergency preparedness in general for every municipality. There were guest speakers and of course the emergency response team that I am the coordinator for also has an animal rescue team. So they were all there. I had the opportunity to share information with other municipal managers about pet sheltering specifically and how it relates to emergency preparedness for humans. A lot of people don't realize it until we actually say it out loud. Most people won't leave their homes if they can't take their pets with them. So the federal government for many years now has required that shelters are available for pets to be put near people shelters when people shelters are needed. So in Androscoggin County, we're very fortunate to have a team. They have a traveling trailer that's filled with animal cages and everything they need to care for pets for people. And so it was eye-opening to see what other counties are doing, what other municipalities are doing. So I was able to learn a lot from that. The EMA director also told us that spring flooding potential was pretty much nil this year. We didn't see any of the flooding that we normally do. Usually at this point we're looking at grants and looking for help to fix flooding damage, and there just wasn't any this year. She also told us about the fiscal year 2016 Homeland Security Grant information. There will be more coming out soon. She'll make sure that she sends it to police, EMS, fire, also to the town manager, and I'll get a copy too. It'll be good to see what sorts of projects we might be able to work on separately and together within Lisbon so that we can make the most of the grants that are available. So I'll be, after that info comes out, I'll be reaching out to those different departments to make sure that we're all on the same page and can maybe focus to make sure that we get as much as possible for projects. The blizzard of 2015 was important in terms of people getting funding for damages and so forth. Normally, the state's share is about 15%, and that goes back to municipalities. So the municipalities get some of that federal funding directly and some of it through the state. The governor didn't get it into his 2015 budget, 16 budget for 15. So that means that we'll probably have to wait till 2017 for the rest of that funding. But the towns really rely on that, and businesses especially rely on that funding. So we're looking forward to seeing that come forward. I also made sure that the emergency response manuals and guidebooks all made it to Lisbon, the ones that were earmarked. They printed a lot fewer this year than they usually do. These are guidebooks that go in EMS vehicles, public works vehicles, police vehicles, fire vehicles to make sure that if in case of emergency, every person in every department knows what to do. There weren't any extras, but it is available digitally. So if Diane, if you know of anyone who needs more, we can get it in that format. And I lugged a few bags full of these big fat books back here for a couple of offices to make sure that we all got them. The county just finished, well, they're about 5% away from finishing a complete overhaul of the county emergency response plan. Once that's completely finished, we have a Lisbon emergency response plan. Every municipality has one. It's required. Ours is very bare bones and sort of generic. It was put in place prior to my being here to make sure that we had one. But we really need one that's specific to Lisbon. So once the county overhaul of the plan is finished, then I'll be able to take our plan and go through it and make any changes that we need, and then I'll be able to bring that to you. Another really interesting thing that's going on at the county level is that the liaison at the EMA at the county level, Randy Barry, is working on GIS resources for us. It took me a long time to figure out what GIS meant. I still don't ever remember what the letters mean, but it's mapping. But it's mapping everything, resources of every single kind. For instance, how many dump trucks are available in the town of Lisbon in case of an emergency, and how many places that have water in case the town water is compromised. So every possible kind of resource is being mapped, and they'll go into overlay maps that you can see the different resources and where they are in each town in the county, and then it's also statewide. Some towns are ahead of others. We're right in the middle of the pack right now. So Randy's already reached out to our Public Works Department, the Codes Office, Economic Development, Police and Fire are pretty much a given. But also the resources that he's able to offer can be really helpful to Lisbon, just in planning and so forth, so it's been really valuable. I also attended the Maine Partners in Emergency Preparedness Conference last month. It was a 2-day conference in Augusta. The first day focused on responses to cyber threats, and the second day to power grid failures. The conference doesn't, it's not a big learning experience in terms of taking classes or that sort of thing, but it gives you a broad overview and puts you in touch with who to find information from. So it was a really great informational conference, and I did learn a lot while I was there, including how much more important the National Weather Service is than it ever has been. I also, while I was there, made sure that I joined the Maine Association of Local Emergency Managers. It's a really good resource, not just for me personally, but for me as a representative for Lisbon, in a way that's similar to the Maine Municipal Association for the council. It's just a really good tool. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. If anyone would like details about the conference that I went to or the meetings that I attended, or would like to know more about any of the individual events, just reach out to me. I'm pretty easy to find. And I just, did anybody have any questions?
You were saying about animal pets, whatever.
Be careful, it's one of my pet projects.
It's, they said the county has a trailer that goes around, and it's for each shelter. Let's say the new gym comes. Would it be, and this is something off the top of the head, but could it be feasible to get a used box trailer that's 40 feet long and have it set up for a animal shelter? They're very cheap to buy, and then it can be moved right there.
It might be feasible, but I don't think it would be necessary. In doing some more trainings with the SMART team, which is the State of Maine Animal Resource Team, and then also with other county animal rescue and response teams. The goal of the animal response teams and rescue teams isn't to go and find animals that need shelter. And we think about events like Hurricane Katrina when we think about animals being lost. The focus is slightly different. It's to be there as a place so that when people need to leave their homes and bring their cats or dogs or birds with them, their household pets, that they can keep them nearby. The animal shelter is always right next to the human shelter. But it doesn't have to be next door. For instance, when we do trainings in Lewiston, at the Lewiston High School. We talked with the folks at Lewiston High School ahead of time, and there's a designated area near the industrial arts area that's really like a big garage. It's indoors, it's heated, and we can put animal cages and set up tables and do everything we need to do. So part of the training is how to, not to have a pet shelter that we put in place, but to be able to put a pet shelter anywhere we go. So it's more like packing a tent and less like driving an RV. So in that sense, it would be really cool if we had extra resources to do that, but I don't think it would be necessary. The trailer that the CART team has is a storage trailer for material and tools, not a place to put animals into. So there is, as a part of that toolkit, can't remember the size of it offhand, but I know I've seen 2 extremely large pickup trucks inside it with tables and chairs and people and room to move around. It's a big tent. The CERT and CART teams right now are pretty good at putting it up. They can put it up in less than half an hour with walls and the top. And then they've designed a floor plan that's not only on paper, but also on a giant poly sheet that rolls out onto the floor so that, I can't remember the term we use sometimes, but, you know, there are always people who are willing to volunteer on site when things happen. So to use those occasional untrained volunteers, part of the certain CART team's goal is to make sure that they're able to take advantage of those willing volunteers, and if there aren't any extra volunteers, to be able to have 3 or 4 people. I've seen the tent put up by 6 people. It's difficult, but I've seen it put up by 12 people, and only 3 of them were trained to do it in advance. So, and it went very quickly. It's pretty straightforward. Part of the toolkit that's inside the trailer includes heaters, lights, fans, cleaning equipment, lots and lots of cleaning equipment, feeding equipment, things like that. So, and then again, we have the GIS resource from the county that can tell us, you know, if we need food, blankets, water for animals, then we know where to go to get it immediately. One of the other goals of the team is it's unlikely that the whole, although it's happened in the past, like with the ice storm, although it's unlikely that the whole state would need shelters everywhere all at once. There are usually in each county central shelters, and so you could have a large shelter at one people's shelter, and then not have as many at the outlying shelters. I mean, personally, my goal would be to eventually have our own team of volunteers in Lisbon, but that takes a little while to build that resource. But I'm pretty sure we can do it, and I'm working both from the direction of being the coordinator for the county team and as EMA director for Lisbon. So we're doing outreach municipality, and I get to use Lisbon as my sort of tryout place. But I think it's great to be able to have that opportunity because I can see both sides of where's going on. So one of the classes I took when the short classes that I took when I went to the conference was on getting volunteers. So.
Yeah.
It has anything to do with animals, you get plenty of them.
Well, and it's pets. It's pet specific. And, even as recently as the fires in Lewiston, when there were several buildings that burned at once, there were a lot of pets without homes, and the Humane Society had members of our team helping them out. It's important to remember that the people on the CART team are not animal trained specifically. There might be a couple of people who are maybe vet assistants or work with animals in some capacity, but they're trained volunteers. There are no veterinarians and things like that. We leave that to the ASPCA and the local humane societies and shelters. That's their specialty, and so ours would simply be to take the heat off that in case of a really big emergency. I'd love to see a nice little volunteer corps of people in Lisbon for the pet sheltering. It's easier to find people to help shelter pets than it is people, so.
Any questions?
The only thing I wanted to mention is I was in contact with Joanne Potvin, and as you know, I sent out that email, and we have to go through, some of you have to go through that NIMS training. So she's agreed to be able to come here and provide the training if we provided with some dates, and I thought maybe if we could give her a couple of off Tuesday nights. And it'll take about 2 hours, give me a couple of dates. May is pretty much out right now, so maybe in June, like the 14th and the 28th, would that work? At 7 o'clock?
Yeah.
And see if she's available either or. But the people that have not had that NIMS training need to have it on the council. It's mandatory if we're going to get grant money. I don't know, I know
Can
the
I 14, 28?
14th and 28th, and I'll get back to you which date works for her.
Okay.
May 26th.
It's a Tuesday, that's all I need to know.
Yeah, she has a training that sparked in the email. It was
Right.
May 26th. So didn't know if it'd be easier to have come to us and give us.
Joanne's given this training 1,000,000 times. She's very fast at it. I mean,
And it may not take 2 hours if
Yeah.
she's doing a small group of people, too.
I'll let you know on the 2 dates.
Yeah.
I'll let you know on the 2 dates.
I should have to look at a couple calendars, and I should be able to give you an answer tomorrow.
A couple calendars.
Okay.
No questions? Okay, Lisa, thank you
all
very
right,
much.
thank you.
Yeah.
Next item, Twyla.
Finance Director's report.
Good evening. We are going to focus mainly on the first page and then perhaps the lead page for public safety. I do want to hand out a portfolio analysis that you should have had last time we met, but got left off.
Sure.
Okay, so overall revenues. And I want to concentrate on the revenue piece because we still have some work to do with the budgets, as you know, to determine what the level of expense will be, okay? But before we get into that, I just want to make a couple of brief comments about the portfolio analysis that you have before you. This year, more than ever, I think it is important that we be cognizant that we do have some money socked away. As I look at where we are headed, we're seeing an increase both on the municipal side and on the school side as far as expenditures going into the next year. We typically run very tight through July and August and into September as far as cash goes. This year, obviously, as the school budget is going up, what is it, 1.2 million?
They've cut it back quite a bit.
All right, whatever it is, town budget's going up significantly as well. Two budgets are up, let's say, $1 million. That still puts a strain because as you look at the flow of expenses, things pretty much even out as a 12th to 12th to 12th, okay? So I am in the process of moving a lot of our investments into very short-term instruments, just in case we have to make a liquidation of some of them through the summer to carry us through until we have sufficient cash from tax collections. So we are preparing for that. Investments are doing pretty good with PTC. I expect that we will come in on budget as far as our overall revenues for interest earnings and investment earnings. Okay, so our overall budgeted revenues call for about $13.3 million and what I'll call general government revenues. The Department 01 that consists of finance, I would say everything with the exception of public safety, public works, and the rec department, and debt service, okay? At April 30th, we had collected $13.05 million. This leaves us about $231,000 to collect between May 1st and June 30th. Obviously, the big revenue that we expect for the rest of the year, okay, will be motor vehicle excise tax. Through the 30th of April, we've collected about $1.14 million. Last year, through April 30th, we had collected $1.13 million. Our revenue budget this year for excise taxes is $1.34 million, and last year it was about $1.28 million. We are projecting an increase this year of $60,000. May and June typically last year produced $163,000 in May and $142,000 in June. So with 40 days from 5/1 to 6/30 in 2015, in the motor vehicle side, we averaged about $7,700 per day and ended up exceeding our budget by the end of the year of about $150,000. So we actually pretty much generated almost an extra month's worth of revenue last year. Last year was especially strong with new motor vehicles being sold and registered here in Lisbon, okay? So in the last 2 months of the year, overall in 2015, we averaged about $9,000 per day in revenue generation and collection. This year we have 2 fewer days because of the calendar, okay, one being obviously Memorial Day, and just how the fiscal year is ending up, we end up with a couple of fewer days to the end of the year, okay? So we're looking at $148,000 short of making our overall budget. So we really need to collect about $4,000 a day to get there, okay, in motor vehicle revenues. First 2 days of May have yielded about $17,000, leaving $131,000 to be collected on the motor vehicle line, okay? Unofficial reports from customer services folks as of 6 p.m. tonight indicate that as of today, we collected another $10,000 in motor vehicle fees. So that leaves us, as of tomorrow, with about $121,000 to go to make our motor vehicle revenue budget, okay? Revenue sharing appears that it'll come in $23,900 over budget. Our expectation was $520,000. We will see that the state grant programs will be sending the remainder of our allocations probably within the next few weeks. We expect money to come in for homestead, veterans, we hope, tree growth maybe. However, we get to the end of the year and we make an accrual to recognize the revenues and make sure that they're properly reflected in this year, even though we'll collect the cash maybe in the first 3 to 4 weeks of the next fiscal year. Our year will end a little bit differently this year than last year. Okay, last year we had a rather large item on our general fund revenues for supplemental taxes of about $180,000. We realized that we were not going to collect that, so on the expense side, we had also included an abatement, but as you look at the revenues, it kind of artificially inflated what we were seeing in the revenues. Also last year, we had a rather large single accrual of about $139,000 for the river trail to cover expenses that town of Lisbon had already borne on the project, and that the state was responsible for reimbursing us. The interesting thing is that this year, even without those 2 items in revenues, that we will still come in probably on budget or better than budget overall. Public safety revenues, as you know, are down. Obviously, we had to forego the revenue for the SRO. We have had some issues, as you know, with some of the towns making other arrangements for dispatch. I think our revenues may be down overall, maybe 60 or 70,000 in public safety. Although we anticipate that we will also have savings in expenses as well. So where we end up is, I think, in a pretty good place. However, as we develop the end game for the close of the fiscal year, and as you folks make decisions on year-end spending with the town manager, please remember that fund balance is a function of two items: over collection of estimated revenues and under expenditure in the various operating departments. It doesn't really represent in any way cash so much as a function of budgetary savings and running ahead of our estimated revenues. Okay, so with that, I'll take any questions you have. And thank you very much.
You got, so in your estimation, the town's looking pretty good.
I think we'll make budget on revenues, probably come out somewhat ahead. You know, we're looking at some forecasts that are coming out from the state of Maine. And I always am curious as to what the Fed here in the Northeast is doing as far as their projections and the Bureau of Labor Standards. I think a positive sign from the state of Maine is that we're seeing an uptick in revenue sharing projected into next year. Now, whether or not that materializes, you know, that's another thing that we have to be cognizant of. So even though revenue sharing has gone up substantially as far as the estimation, you know, I'm always encouraging that we be very conservative and realistic about what we estimate for increased revenues. I don't know how long the wave is going to last on motor vehicles. As you know, if you read papers and listen to the news, a lot of infighting between, I would say, the markets and the Fed over whether or not interest rates should be pushed one way or the other. So we have to keep an eye on that and try to understand what the impact on our overall economy will be. We've seen an uptick quite substantial from where we were on gasoline and petroleum products. I don't expect that the increase will not see some remediation as we go into the fall and get by the tourist season, but I don't think that will return to the gasoline and diesel prices and home heating fuel that we had last winter. Some of that's a function of the fact that we didn't have much of a winter and everybody was sitting on a lot of stockpile. So, you know, those are the things that I kind of think about when, you know, Diane and I talk about revenues into the future. But yeah, I think we're in pretty good shape right now.
Okay.
Where do we stand on the fuel part? I know we had to go up a little bit from the original budget forecast. Are we still anticipating the dip? Because
What do you mean, in the current year?
yeah, we're going up slightly from what you forecasted originally, right?
Are you talking about the new budget that I'm
Yes.
working on? I haven't touched that yet. I'm still waiting to see what happens with that.
Okay.
I'm trying to look at the,
Bigger picture
our
here.
usage too, how many
Yeah,
gallons
yeah.
we've used, and calculate that out to what I've projected to see if we're gonna have enough.
And a soft winter throws that off too.
Yeah.
You know, it all works against you for
And also,
forecasting purposes.
when we decide, I mean, I may wanna start looking at trying to lock in this
Sooner
early
rather than later,
for
yeah.
Later.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you
But that's
bring,
one of the
you bring a
ones that
lot
we
of
have to-
food for thought, Ed, with all the discussions. And one of the things that I would say going through the departmental budget workshops is an appreciation for, are we pushing too close to this line for this item being talked about this year versus next, and those kind of discussions. It's a great resource to have, to be able to get an idea where we're at this end of the game, for sure. I know it's working kind of counter to, you know, some of the operational things that you'd rather be spending your time on once we get past the budget with the migration and those kinds of things, but never enough hours in the day.
No, but I think we'll be okay. I mean, I think Diane's done an outstanding job of managing the expense side of the budget, and I think that's really going to pay off on the end game this year.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item, Twyla.
Audience participation and response to new items.
Don?
I'm here to advertise. My name is Don Fellows. I'm a member of the planning board, and I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm also preaching to whoever may watch this recording, so bear with me if you're bored. Some time ago, the town council asked, or actually formally asked, the planning board to consider the possibility of expanded commercial activity on Route 9. In response to that, the the planning board initiated some action, which its first action is a Route 9 survey. That Route 9 survey is on the town website, which is www.lisbonme.com.org. And sorry, which
Yeah, we don't have a corporate sponsor yet.
Yeah, right. No, we're working on it. Anyway,
Say that one more time. www.
.lisbonme.org.
Diane said that.
So on the very front
I'll send
page,
you the
one more
link
time,
tomorrow.
it's on the front page of this.
Yeah, you can't miss
The
that.
survey is 13 questions. Now, since the planning board gave us the direction to pursue this, the survey assumes that there may be some more commercial activity on that Route 9. That's the way the survey is slanted. Does not mean that there is any preconceived notion. Does not mean that anybody has made up their mind on how much or if any commercial activity will be added to that that's already there. The planning board is in charge of figuring it out. We have a thing called a future land use plan. We have a thing called a comprehensive plan. We have to keep all those things in mind. There may be a need, there may be not a need for expanded commercial activity, and that was our charge. We hope to come up with something that everybody in town is happy with, although that's probably a hope that won't make it for everybody. So anyway, that's our goal. That's the question, and I ask this. How many of you have taken that survey? Anybody? How many have tried to take it and doesn't know where to find it?
I will tonight.
Where is it, Roger? Where is it? Where's the survey?
www.lisbonme.org.
All right, so thank you.
Right on the front of the Lisbon page. Have you had much activity on that?
I meant to say you, as far as I know, the last I heard from the people that know is somewhere between 160 and 200. And that's the other point I'd like to make. Last I heard, there were about 9,000 people in this town. I think we can do better.
Yeah.
I think we would do better if we had much more input from everybody than 200 people. Thanks.
Being publicly shamed, I will take
Harry?
it tomorrow.
You and me both.
I really don't think you want me to address that. Okay?
Okay.
I will. There it goes. Right there. Okay, I'm Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. I took the survey. I was extremely disappointed in the nature of the manner in which it was presented. There are 3 questions in there that assumes or predetermines, as Don said,
that we're putting commercial on Route 9, which is right today far from the truth. Okay? If you're going to ask a question, all of the options that you have should be there. These 3 questions only deal with the fact that it's commercial on Route 9. Not accurate. And it doesn't give you a none of the above or a space to write in your response other than check the blocks. Do we want commercial from here to point A to point B, B to C, C to D? If people don't want it at all, they should have the option of checking none of the above. But when you, and I know it's a great thought, it was, Dawn and I have discussed this, the thought is there, it's a right thing to do, but we did it wrong. If you don't ask the right questions, you will never get the right answer. But if you slant it to the way you want it to come out, you're always going to get that slant. All questions should be with all options. And the people should have valid questions in order to get their feelings out to the planning board, to you people, okay? I was extremely disappointed in the fact that it was slanted terribly on 3 questions, okay? The rest of them I could deal with, but 3 questions were so far out of bounds that renders the entire survey invalid. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have a question for Dawn. I have a question for Dawn.
Comment again and not a rebuttal.
New item, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
you can have another comment.
I have a question for you before you leave.
So you're coming up
I
anyway.
forgot to mention, because I was going to talk about a couple of questions that are on the survey, and I forgot to do that. Question number 5, which has been written about recently, ask you to check off which sections of Route 9 you think might be appropriate for expanded commercial or business uses. There are several options in there, and the last of which is unsure. It does not give you a choice other than that. However, the next question is totally blanks to fill out. Are there characteristics of the route that you'd like to maintain? And then it asks you in question 8, what types of business should be allowed on Route 9, either all of Route 9 or part of it? And the last part of that is, I'm unsure, other than have a particular direction. And it goes on. So, again, I would like to make the point, the more discussion we have about it, the more that people write about it, hopefully the more people will take it and write. Fill in the blanks. Give us their preferences. And I really don't care if you like the survey or not. If you hate it, but still want to make a comment, please do. Thank you. What's your question?
Who came up with the questions in general? Was it the planning board?
The planning board came up with some questions, and Amanda put them on paper. And I got to admit something, possibly quicker than we wanted. But there is a timeline that we had drawn out there, because if there is a change to be made at all to Route 9, the planning board has been given direction by this council. So we would like this council to have to weigh on it, because if we make a change, it is this council that is concerned about it. In order to do that by November, there's a lot of process between now and then. So this questionnaire is just the beginning. It is not anywhere near the end of the process. That answer it? Anybody else?
Okay.
Dorothy Fitzgerald, Lisbon Falls. The questionnaire is available online, but I also picked up a copy at the Lisbon Library. I don't know where else copies are available for people that do not have a computer and would prefer to fill one out rather than doing it online. I picked mine up last Friday. I was at the Lisbon Library, and when I read it, I was totally appalled because it is so slanted and one-sided. I couldn't believe it. I did fill it out online, but anyway, it is available. I don't know where else it is available. Maybe Dawn can
We have
enlighten
some
me.
here in the town office, the girls have
Town
them.
office and the Lisbon Library.
I think it would be good to address to the public where they can drop it off after it's done.
That's true, too. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Town office
Mhm.
For Tracy, or at the office, or at Codes. We'll get it. You can also leave it at the town library, and we'll pick it up there.
Thank you.
And the other thing, it does end on May 11th. So, and the reason it ends on May 11th is so we have time to talk about it. So, please take it.
Yes.
If I'm allowed to speak twice, I have a suggestion. I was at the transfer station last Saturday. I'm there usually every Saturday, and that is a very, 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 very busy place. I would suggest printing off 100, 200 copies and leaving them at the transfer station.
Good
Good idea.
suggestion.
That's a good idea.
Good idea, Dot.
Or we can volunteer Dawn to go stand out and hand them out.
Great. Very well.
Anyone else?
You said
Next
you
item,
wanted
Paula.
vol.
There are no appointments. It would be Counselor Communications.
I got one.
Yep.
I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge and recognize a great man from Lisbon who just finished his final term up at the state legislature. You might know that guy. Dale Crafts finished out on Friday, termed out, and I just wanted to say thank you, Dale, for your service to the community, to the state. We're better off that you went up there and represented Lisbon and all your constituents up there, and we're glad to have you back home, even for a little while.
I can almost guarantee that he's gonna take a deep breath and he'll be doing something else. He ain't gonna run off.
I think you might be right on that.
Anybody else?
Our CIP meeting, you want to cover that? Or do you want to do it later?
Go ahead.
That would be a no, right? Okay. Diane, Ed, Roger, and I met a week ago, Tuesday, I guess, and we've come up with an idea for an additional $50 to $1,000 for seed money for the capital improvement plan, working with the overlay funds to be able to do it, so we're not further hindering the revenue stream this year and trying to put something together that, if not rated in the next year or so for some other purpose, will actually be good seed money for some of the projects that are coming down the line for investment in our infrastructure. That's it.
Nice work.
Nobody else? Next item, Twyla.
Is Order 2016-109 to go into executive session per 1 MRSA Section 405-6C, acquisition or disposition of real property.
We're gonna stay in here,
Yeah, we'll stay
No
in
vote
here.
after
There's not
that.
going to be any vote after.
Motion by,
Make a motion to go into executive session.
second.
Second? Nope. Go ahead, take her.
All those in favor? Yeah, we're like 7-0, order passed. Send recess.
You let me look at it from now, I'll tell you what that is.
So there's North Street. I don't know what this town property is.
Hey, Dawn.
And then this.
Because what it is
Doesn't go across, you have to go up